This video was made in collaboration with Second Thought. We made another video to accompany this one all about the basics of Marxism. Check that one out on his channel, link in the description, and be sure to subscribe. There seems to be this bizarre notion that only a certain percentage of the population can be mentally ill. Any more than that and it's all just posers and edgy teenagers, brats who want attention. But just because depression is a mental rather than a physical illness doesn't mean that it can't be caused by things in the real world. Since even before the pandemic, mental illness has been on the rise. According to the World Health Organization, depression is one of the leading causes of illness and disability among adolescents worldwide, and suicide is the third leading cause of death in 15 to 19-year-olds. And according to the National Institute of Mental Health, the overall suicide rate in the US has increased by 31% since 2001. We like to explain mental illness in terms of biology, chemical imbalances, neurotransmitters, but it's hard to reduce mental illness to just biology. There are also underlying societal issues for why people become mentally ill. Social class is one of, if not the most significant indicator of mental health. Research has been done on this topic since the early 1900s, and scientists have consistently found that poor people are much more likely to become mentally ill. But paradoxically, in many places around the world, mental health care isn't covered by insurance, so poor people have a harder time getting the help that they need. And when our society fails to provide for people, we shouldn't be shocked when we see an increase in mental illness. But even if we were to ramp up spending on mental health care, the lack of treatment is still only part of the reason poor people experience mental illness more than rich people do. What exactly are the underlying causes? Fromm, the famous social psychologist and psychoanalyst, argued that there are 5 things beyond biological needs like food and sleep that people need to be healthy. The first is relatedness, forming ties with other people. Fromm argues that we need connection because we're instinctively aware of how alone and separated we are. He says that you can't face your own powerlessness, your own ignorance, or the accidentalness of your own birth and death completely alone. Even if all physiological needs are met, without connection you would face a state of aloneness as a prison from which you would need to break out in order to retain your sanity. Our sanity depends on the fulfillment of forming connections with other living beings, to be related. The second is transcendence, what we might call creative aptitude. Fromm argues that after humans started dominating nature, we could fulfill people's biological needs without the need for everyone to be a hunter or gatherer. Humans developed the ability to express a creative intelligence, which is now a core human characteristic that requires fulfillment. We're thrown into the world without reason or consent and will be taken out of the world without reason or consent, and in that way we're no different from plants. But what makes us human, Fromm argues, is our ability to reason and imagine. And because of those abilities, we can't be satisfied with a passive role in nature. We're driven to transcend the accidentalness of our existence, to compensate for the lack of meaning in the universe by creating our own meanings, by becoming creators ourselves. Third is rootedness, belonging. Being alone, being helpless and isolated is a path to mental illness. We long to connect, to feel like we belong somewhere, to feel like we have a home. While we have natural ties, the family unit, Fromm argues that we also need what he calls human ties, unnatural ties that we form for human reasons and not for reasons of family. Just as birth means to leave the enveloping protection of the womb, growing up means to leave the protective orbit of the mother. For most of human history, this rootedness has been found in nationalism and religion, what Fromm calls state worship. But instead of arguing for clans or states or theocracy, Fromm says that nationalism and state worship became the symptoms of a regression to incestuous fixation. Only when a man succeeds in developing his reason and love further than he has done so far, only when he can build a world based on human solidarity and justice, only when he can feel rooted in the experience of universal brotherliness, will he have found a new human form of rootedness, will he have transformed his world into a truly human home. Fourth is a sense of identity, the ability to decide who you are and what makes you you. Because although we need rootedness and relatedness, we also need an individual identity. Man, being torn away from nature, being endowed with reason and imagination, needs to form a concept of himself, needs to say and to feel, I am I. In feudalism, a person was defined by their role in the societal hierarchy. The peasant wasn't just a person who happened to be a peasant. The peasant was a peasant, one of many. And likewise, the feudal lord wasn't a man who happened to be a lord, he was a lord. These days, we have a sort of false sense of individuality and identity. For a majority of people, individualism is a facade. I am Swedish, I am a socialist, I make YouTube videos. These aren't identities so much as substitutes for identity. These things don't tell you much about who I am, and it doesn't tell me who I am either. Fromm calls this herd identity, where the sense of identity rests on the sense of an unquestionable belonging to the crowd. I am an American, I am a Protestant, I am a businessman, I am a regular fellow, I am as you desire me. These fake identities aren't identities, they're merely attempts to fit in, to assure others, and perhaps also yourself, that you are normal, that you are just like everyone else. I don't have a job. My job isn't something I do, I am my job. I am a doctor, I am a lawyer. My role in the economy is my identity. Marx wanted us to be able to break free from the tyranny of the division of labor and long working days, which prevent individuals from developing different kinds of capacities and talents. We become servants to one kind of activity, and other dimensions of our personalities are left underdeveloped. For as soon as the distribution of labor comes into being, each man has a particular exclusive sphere of activity, which is forced upon him and from which he cannot escape. He is a hunter, a fisherman, a herdsman, or a critical critic, and must remain so if he does not want to lose his means of livelihood. While in communist society, where nobody has one exclusive sphere of activity, but each can become accomplished in any branch he wishes, society regulates their general production, and thus makes it possible for me to do one thing today and another tomorrow, to hunt in the morning, fish in the afternoon, rear cattle in the evening, criticize after dinner just as I have a mind, without ever becoming hunter, fisherman, herdsman, or critic. Lastly is what Fromm called a frame of orientation and devotion, basically a framework through which to make sense of the world and your own experience, a lens through which we can perceive reality. These are the 5 things that a society and individuals need in order to be happy and healthy. Under capitalism, however, the full satisfaction of the human psyche is thwarted. According to Fromm, the origins of poor mental health in modern times is rooted in capitalism and its political and social structures, which prevents the satisfaction of the 5 innate human desires. Fromm wrote that if one of the basic necessities has found no fulfillment, insanity is the result. If it is satisfied, but in an unsatisfactory way, neurosis is the consequence.
Let's take a common 21st century example. Imagine you work at Best Buy. As part of the home theater department, your job is to sell people the latest and greatest TVs, sound systems, and all the must-have accessories to get the most out of their new equipment. Thanks to the pandemic, you now make $15 per hour, up from $12 per hour at the beginning of the year. Your job's not too bad, you tell yourself. You clock in around 2 p.m., stand around for most of the day, no sitting allowed of course, sell massive 80-inch TVs to a handful of customers when they stop in on the way home from the office, and clock out around 10 p.m. Many of your fellow employees have a similar schedule, a few long days every week with a couple of shorter shifts in between. You're all mostly part-time workers, usually clocking just shy of 35 hours per week. You'd love to be full-time, but your store just has too many employees to allot full-time positions. So you work 34 hours per week, selling TVs and soundbars and pushing the enticing Best Buy credit card. It only takes a minute to see if you're approved, and you can walk out with your dream home theater system without paying a penny today. The months drag on, most days punctuated by a big sale or a particularly annoying customer or a cringe-inducing team meeting. Eventually, you begin to feel different. You're more tired than usual. The customers seem especially obnoxious. You wake up in the morning and dread putting on the blue polo, and when you get home at the end of the day, you just want to watch TV and forget about work. Is there something wrong with you? Stores like Best Buy are some of the best places to begin to understand the critical role consumption plays in our modern life. As a worker in a big box electronics store, you get a first-hand look at the end goal of capitalism. You are a middleman. Trucks of new TVs are delivered to your store. You put them on display, you learn enough about them to make customers desire the latest iteration of these machines they already have. You even have one yourself. You do get a small employee discount after all. You may not have healthcare, but hey, at least you get $100 off a $1,000 TV. Your day is spent in supplication at the altar of consumption. You work to sell consumer goods, and when you go home, all you have the mental strength to do is consume media yourself. You may not be able to articulate it, but the feelings you're experiencing are a direct result of the capitalist labor market. You're kept below full-time for a reason. In America, part-time workers are not entitled to any kind of benefits. No healthcare, no paid sick days or vacation time, nothing. By maintaining a workforce of nearly full-time employees, Best Buy ensures they have plenty of labor, but they also save money by not having to provide fair compensation to their workers. You have to choose between taking on another part-time job to help pay for excessively expensive private healthcare and maintaining enough time to decompress outside of work. When you trade hours of your life for an unfair wage, when you feel like the work you're doing is meaningless and could be done by a computer, when you have to ration your time in order to maintain multiple jobs just to afford rent and health insurance, you're prone to experiencing the effects of alienation. You're unable to spend time with your friends and family or even to relax by yourself. Your mental health suffers. You feel lethargic all the time. You feel like you're trapped. This is incredibly common in hyper-capitalist labor markets like the US. Work is trending more and more towards the laborer being nothing more than a fleshy cog in the consumption machine. Rest assured, if Best Buy executives could replace all their workers with low-cost robots, they would do it in a heartbeat. But for the time being, human workers are necessary to move their products. And so little by little, those executives whittle away the compensation for their workers. Every benefit withheld and penny cut from a worker's pay is a penny more of profit, and that's all that matters under capitalism. The reduction of costs and the maximization of profit. And just as the boss considers his workers little more than machines, so too does the worker begin to feel like a tiny cog, doomed to either continue spinning or be replaced and cast aside.
Marx thought that human beings have a natural inclination to feel connected to the objects that they have made or created. He calls this the objectification of labor, by which he meant that we put something of ourselves into our work. When one cannot connect with one's own creation, when one feels external to it, alienation results. What then constitutes the alienation of labor? First, the fact that labor is external to the worker, i.e. it does not belong to his intrinsic nature. That in his work, therefore, he does not affirm himself but denies himself, does not feel content but unhappy, does not develop freely his physical and mental energy but mortifies his body and ruins his mind. The worker therefore only feels himself outside his work, and in his work feels outside himself. He feels at home when he is not working, and when he is working he does not feel at home. His labor is therefore not voluntary but coerced. It is forced labor. The vast majority of people who work don't work because they enjoy it. They spend 8 hours a day, every day, their entire lives doing something they'd rather not be doing. But they have no choice but to do it because they need to buy food and pay rent. It's only a fortunate minority of people who are lucky enough to have jobs that they like doing, and which they would continue to do if money wasn't a factor. I personally don't make enough money from YouTube to make it my full-time job, but one day I might. And if I do, I'll have a privilege that most people don't have. Not only a job that I enjoy, but one which lets me express myself creatively. It's a sad reality that most jobs don't let you do that, because creativity, like Fromm says, is an innately human quality and something we need to express in order to be healthy. Dr. David Matthews writes, "Modern monopoly capitalist society continues to be characterized by an incompatibility between, on the one hand, capitalism's ruthless pursuit of profit, and on the other hand, the essential needs of the people. As a result, the conditions required for optimum mental health are violently undermined, with monopoly capitalist society plagued by neuroses and more severe mental health problems." Under capitalism, the purpose of both our 8 hours of work and our 8 hours of leisure is to increase consumption. When we're at work, we make products or provide services, and when we're at home, we consume products and services. Sure, we have free time. 100 years ago, workers fought and many died at the hands of police brutality for the 8-hour workday. 8 hours work, 8 hours sleep, 8 hours leisure. But leisure in capitalist society is rarely meaningful leisure. More and more, we find that time off is spent watching TV shows, not pursuing passions, or doing something intellectually challenging. And don't get me wrong, this is not a critique of the people who do these things, mind you. I'm not saying people are lazy. I'm saying that work under capitalism sucks so much energy out of us that all we want to do when we get home is to sit on the couch and watch Better Call Saul. But consumerism doesn't make us happy, not in the long term. Consumerism is designed to make us dissatisfied with our old product, to always make us want just one more thing. New phone, new car, new computer, new headphones. Now my phone is old, I need a new phone, a new car, a new computer, new headphones, and on it goes. Consumerism is empty, it's hollow, it doesn't have a purpose, it doesn't make society better, it doesn't make anyone's life better. So when the entire reason we go to work every day is to uphold consumerist society, work loses all meaning. This is what Marx calls alienation, an illustration of capitalism's mortifying physical and mental impact on people, making us feel estranged from both ourselves and the world around us. Capitalism forces us to do things that we don't want to do just to survive. It forces us to compete against each other for jobs and promotions. Everything is a competition. Everything can be won. Everything can be lost. All you need to do is climb the corporate ladder and kick it away after you've made it. You need to always work hard, always look out for opportunities, always kiss the boots of those more successful than you. Any moment of rest is a moment lost, an opportunity squandered. That's not the foundation for a society of mentally healthy people. It's a society that promotes sociopathy. There are a lot of reasons why we need to get rid of capitalism. The environment is one of them. Another is the simple fact that capitalism goes against human nature. Humans are naturally cooperative and social creatures. We find these behaviors even in our primate relatives and in other mammals. Civilization, society, agriculture, even hunting and gathering in our most primitive state of existence relied completely on cooperation and sharing. Ask any anthropologist. We've found evidence time and time again that in the Neolithic and Paleolithic eras, tribes took care of all their members, including those who could not contribute to either hunting or gathering due to physical disability. If it's true what capitalists say about human nature, that we're naturally greedy, naturally conniving, naturally individualistic, it would make no sense for us to have shown compassion to each other in this way long before the invention of agriculture and civilization. But we did, because humans have empathy. And for a society to be human, it too needs to have empathy. But capitalism does not. So how do we get rid of capitalism? Well, a good first step might be reaching out to other leftists. That's why this video is brought to you by theleft.com. Theleft.com is a brand new forum for leftists of all tendencies, dedicated to bringing people together through the exchange of ideas in a safe and inclusive environment. And they're looking for new users and volunteers who will be moderators or designers. Sign up on their forum and join their Discord server for more information. It's a good way to pass the time during quarantine, and you'll make some friends along the way. Thanks to theleft.com for sponsoring this video. And because we do still live under capitalism, I have to make my money somehow. So let me just take a moment to thank my patrons over on patreon.com/AsherScapegoat. Thank you to Dunk Junk Funk, Joshua Cheeseman, Tom Butt, Tim Tom, Robert Porkchop, Ludmila Gaminova, Subsystem of Society, Jacob Coles, Alpert Hilpert, Christian Chung, Dolly, Trotsky is Dummy Thick, M. Lim, Matthew Rucky, Cut Play, Will M, The Guzzler, Zen Ultra, Benjamin Ellis, Aaron Lowley, TK, Hunter Monroe, Reboot 01, 108, Yahi Ramirez, Atrib Nordsmra, Jimmy Cullen, Ben Davis, Toshi, Mr. P. Palop, A Funny Leftist Username, Joshua Cardoza, Ray Nuh, Aidan Campbell, Cade, Zachary Tabal, Stoller, Tyler Templeton, Alex Shafter, Tom Owen, Maximilian Slaughter, Jenna Weingart, Micah Argyropoulos, Dordoise, APG, Jesse Letford, Colbin Holland, Dr. J. F. Padilla, Irene Kalianis, Steeleye Folk, Nice Ukimai, David Jacobo, Steve, Daniel Goff, Chinchi, Khan, Comrade Liebknecht, Ahen, Kino Fox, Alfie Bridge Smith, Osise Buketi, Gekobite, Emil Segerbek, Fogram, and Jedi Davian. I'm really sorry, Jedi Davian, you always end up at the very bottom of my Patreon relationship manager list thing. Hope you're not upset about that.